What's happening, folks? Back with another reaction, back with some more ska, and some more punk-infused ska, and indeed, we're back with the all-time legendary masters of this subgenre, the excellent, if admittedly very short duration Operation Ivy, on their one studio album, Energy, from I believe 1991. Now I say that because that's my recollection, but this track came out in 89, I think originally. Certainly it makes reference to 89 over the course of the tune, and that is Freeze Up. And I haven't done a reaction to them since I think April of 2023, so it's been quite a while, though I think I had done like 13 or 14 of them, including a couple covers of Op Ivy tunes before that. So just to catch people up who haven't seen those older reactions, which again, back then I was talking to a much smaller audience, so I sort of assumed many things, but I was also long-winded and didn't really worry about that, so I'll try to be concise. But the point is, they were one of the groups which ushered in the third wave of ska, but were much more, let's say, underground and politically infused than some of the bands in the US in the 90s who were famous for being part of that third wave of ska. A number of members went on to famous other projects, most notably Tim Armstrong, Lint, as he often goes by. He went on to form Rancid, which became much more internationally known and was around for a lot longer. And I believe Dave Mello, the drummer, went on to some other things. The singer and songwriter, arguably my favorite member of Operation Ivy, just because his lyrics are just crazy, like on another level. Jesse Michaels, he was in a couple different bands, but I believe for the last decade or so, he's sort of retired from the active composing or songwriting world, which is to say, I think he's made some guest appearances at shows. I remember he did a guest appearance playing, was it The Crowd? Basically, Mike Park had a concert for one of his bands, and Jesse Michaels was in the audience, and I think it was Take Warning, maybe. But yes, ultimately, he does not make music currently, as far as I know. I think he had a post on social media about this a little while back, but his lyrics are just brilliant, like very incisive, very wicked, but very intelligent and cleverly written. And yes, this group was around, I want to say, like 88 to 91. I think they broke up right around the time their only album on Lookout Records, which is like a Bay Area label for like punk and ska. I believe they also, the very earliest Green Day releases, I think, are also on Lookout because they were from the same area. And indeed, Billy Joe Armstrong is, I think, cousins with Tim Armstrong. So there is a connection there, even though the bands were pretty far apart in terms of at least lyrical subject matter. Nevertheless, the point is, we're going to listen to Freeze Up, which I think is one of the best examples of Jesse Michaels' lyrical prowess. It talks about decaying factories in the East, and there's a lot of, in the East Coast and like what we call the Midwest, which is actually farther east than like directly center of the US, but there's a lot of manufacturing centers that once the U.S. economy began moving more toward like a service economy and so on, they fell into disrepair and jobs were lost and there were economic downturns and a lot of these places that had relied on these big factories. It talks about how, the sort of decay and danger of not only those economic processes, but the tough work for often not great pay that workers in those places were doing. You can see it on the broken worker's face, and it talks about a Silicon Valley out in the West, a Silicon Promised Land, where machines replace our minds for, like a perfect profit plan. I don't think that's the exact line. Profit plan is the last two words, but I forget what the adjective is before that. But so it's talking about like socioeconomic factors in time as they've changed and the way that human workers, whether you're talking about old school factories where the common man was exposed to dangerous working conditions without a lot of protections, with the companies fighting against unionization and so on, and all the low pay, right up into the modern times where again computer chips and AI, it's all designed to, in one sense, or at least officially, relieve humans from burdensome jobs, but in fact leads to more people not really having a livelihood and the rich getting richer while the poor struggle to make ends meet, never mind gain or be able to pay for the fruits of these technological advances. So there's a bit of a Faustian sentiment in the lyrical exploration of the track, and in particular in a line something like, "The course of human progress staggers like a drunk. Its steps are quick and heavy, but its mind is slow and blunt." So there's again a real progress is great except for its victims. It also speaks about the way that the United States, and there are certainly other countries that do this too, but in many ways the United States has been the primary purveyor of this type of attitude, at least publicly and officially. The idea that we wave the flag of freedom as we conquer and invade, and it talks about politicians speaking in elated terms but secretly just sort of trying to advance their own interests and that of their cronies in this oligarchical sort of environment. So it takes shots at a lot of different things, specifically nationally for the US and culturally, historically, socially, but a lot of the concepts can be applied to the world at large, other nation states, as well as the course of human progress in, again, a very Faustian way. So I think the lyrics are brilliant, and I talk about some of them in advance because, like with many Op Ivy songs, Jesse hits them very rapidly with his vocal delivery. So the first time you hear it, you're listening to the ska-punk type of rhythms, which this is more on the ska end of their catalog. Something like The Crowd is more down the punk end of their catalog. This is more ska-like, but it's fast. It's a ska-punk tune in its energy, like the album, but also in the raw, intense nature of it, even if they do have some other tunes that are more formally punk in terms of the sonics, where there's less of that ska rhythm guitar, and there's not so many horns. It's more of like an old school punk tune. So again, this is more down the spectrum of their ska stylings, but less so than a track like Bank Shot or some of the others where it's real sort of like skank and ska. So with no further ado, let's hear it. This is Operation Ivy. The track is Freeze Up, and it's from their 89 to 91, somewhere in there, album Energy on Lookout Records.
Get me back into the eats and all our ways. The safer things that keeps us on the broken workers' days. To the west of Finders, look up promised land, where machines don't place our marching systematic profit plans. Course of human progress, take us like a drunk. It's left a quick and heavy and its mind is on one. I go for optimism, but I just don't know. If things are planted in a poison place where nothing grows. 1989, stand up and take a look around. Well, it's been a ditch on, it seems to sinking down. Drunk with power and fighting one another. Every hour sons of which are getting harder. There's a freeze up coming. 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 Nations as a soul is radiating blinding light. Plastic and fluorescent energy robbing us of sight. Set in our way, content without a K. We wave the flag of freedom as we conquer and obey. Ever ask yourself, where's my place in this hell? But no one's there to tell you cause they've gonna let themselves. Well rehearsed, mantra for related politicians. No longer offer ourselves, we can see the self-destruction. 1989, stand up and take a look around. Well, it's been a ditch on, it seems to sinking down. Drunk with power and fighting one another. Every hour starts of which are getting harder. There's a freeze up coming. 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 Just one political song to drop into the list that stretches years and years long. Just one political song to drop into the list that stretches years and years long. Static and division is increasing like a storm. We are shelter, we are forewarned. Nothing can be changed except ourselves. Nothing can be changed except ourselves. There's a freeze up. There's a freeze up coming. There's a freeze up. There's a freeze up coming. There's a freeze up coming. There's a freeze up. Freeze up coming. There's a freeze up. There's a freeze up coming. There's a freeze up coming.
It's just, their catalog is untouchable. I like a lot of other ska bands, a lot of other ska punk bands that do a little bit of ska, but really, there's no group to my mind that ever fused the two genres as perfectly, as intelligently, and as witheringly as Operation Ivy. So shout out and much respect to the short duration legends that would influence many other bands, and not just bands like Rancid that were literally composed of former Op Ivy members, but again, so many groups have cited them as an influence. And yes, 1989, it's 36 years later, one could argue it's as poignant, as incisive, as correctly critical as it was in 89, 36 years later, and that's the sign of a one political song that was written very, very well. And I like it because, a lot of their songs have socio-cultural commentary and, incisive lyrics that critique aspects of the way people think and the way people live and people's attitudes about things, both down onto the individual or in smaller groups, right on up to nations and the entire human race. But I do think this one is one of their more overtly political tracks, where they're talking about governments conquering and invading and national politicians saying one thing whilst basically trying to pad their own pockets and take advantage of and exploit those farther down the totem pole. So it's funny to me that they have that part with the sort of interlude that, like, look, just grant us this one political song to drop into a list of such types of songs that stretches years and years long. So again, I like that it's a bit self-aware, it's a bit cheeky. But yes, there's a freeze up coming, it's just the winter getting harder. You could apply that to a lot of parts of the song lyrically, but of course, the arms race and nuclear winter, I feel like it fits into that very well. And again, 89, the Cold War is not technically yet over even by that point, or even though by that point it was perhaps less terrifying than in at least, a few years before that. But again, just the lyrics by Michael's unbelievable. I do love that guitar solo. I'm trying to remember, I think Lint, aka Tim Armstrong, I think he's the guitarist. I know Dave Mello was on drums. I'm trying to remember who, does it say on the back here? Oh, it does. So Lint, yes, guitar and vocals. So yeah, Tim was on guitar. I do very much enjoy that guitar solo. And as I said, it's fast, it's energetic, but it's got that rhythm ska guitar. It has the, a bit of that oi skankin' ska sound, but not as mellow and smooth and, brass heavy as some other forms of ska. But at the same time, not as rip-roaring, punk-wise as some of their other tunes or some other groups who play ska-punk. So yeah, it's just an all-time masterpiece, like most of the album. Again, I think I've reacted to maybe like 13 of the... What is it? It's like 27. And in fact, I think this is the omnibus. I think it's the album Energy plus a couple of EPs. It's not all their material. I remember there's a song called Plea for Peace that I like a lot, and I remember hearing at some point, I was like, wait, that's not on the compilation Operation Ivy CD that I have. So again, I know there's at least one other EP with tunes that aren't on this, but by and large, this is the majority of their catalog. So all 27 tunes on it are brilliant. As I said, I think I've reacted to maybe like 14 of them now, plus a couple covers of their tunes, which I did. Like I did Yellin' in My Ear, the original, and then I reacted to the Blue Meanies version of Yellin' in My Ear. And I want to say I reacted to... Oh, what is it? It was on that Punk Rocksteady album. It was a cover of Sleep Long, Sleep Well, which, again, the original's brilliant, one of my favorite by Op Ivy, but the cover is done in this, like, down-tempo reggae style. I forget who does it. It's brilliant. What's their name again? I have another album by them, and I'm blanking on it. Oh, Mad Caddies, that's who it is. Punk Rocksteady, the Mad Caddies. They do an incredible cover of that tune, so, that's back in my older Operation Ivy reactions, if you're curious. But seriously, I need to go through this entire compilation because they left a small but untouchable, legendary legacy, did Operation Ivy. So shout out to them. Shout out to Jesse Michaels in particular for his incredible lyrics. Shout out to Lookout Records. Again, from what I understand, they were the starting point of some like major bands that at least made a big impact, maybe didn't have a super long career, as in the case of Operation Ivy, though Green Day obviously a much longer career. And I think there was eventually some like controversy about the way the label was run, so I don't know the whole story, but either way, they obviously at the time saw a really talented group of young individuals who had a lot to say and did it in a really compelling musical style. So shout out to them too. And Luca, don't worry, I shall give you the chair. Do let me know what you think, and I will see you next time. Peace.